Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. My name is Dr. Kurt Fisnick, and I just wanted to say thanks for joining me tonight. I know there's lots of other things that you could be doing this great Friday evening, or if you're in Australia or New Zealand, one of the countries in the Southern Hemisphere, it's Saturday morning, and you could be doing something outside there as well. I know you're having some beautiful weather as well. So thanks for taking the time. Before I get into the real meat of things and start sharing what I'm going to be talking about, I just really want to share with you my purpose. Why am I doing this? Why do I take my Friday nights and spend it with you here on the internet, online? You know, I was going to school for engineering, mechanical engineering back in the early 80s when I realized that I really liked helping other people, and so I went into chiropractic, and that's been my purpose all my entire adult life is helping people live healthier, happier, safer, stress-free lives. And I've had that as my purpose my entire adult life. I've been an entrepreneur. I've never had a job working for anyone else since I got started after college, and I'll continue that with what I'm doing here in the industry of network marketing. You'll see on my first slide, it says the coronavirus attacks the unhealthy. And I've really been trying to give that message to people because I think that it's really important to understand that it seems like the people who are affected by the COVID-19 the most are the same people who tend to have a shorter health span. And I'll talk about a few of these things. And really, we just want to say that your first line of defense, I feel, is refuse to become part of the unhealthy group. Before I really get started, also, I want to put this disclaimer here. This presentation is my opinion. It's not the opinion of anyone at corporate, at Sisel, or it doesn't reflect upon any of the other products that I'm going to talk about. So if you feel that you have any kind of a health condition at all, contact your healthcare provider. We're not making any kind of diagnosis. We're not trying to make any claims of cure or treatment. This is purely an educational video, and I recommend that you do some research, and I suggest that you do it with everything that you do. If your doctor suggests a treatment, research it. Unless it's an emergency type of thing where you're in the hospital and you're having a heart attack and you need to get some treatment right now. Yeah, other than that, do some research. You're the one that's in charge. You're the one. You know your body better than anyone else. Why not be at least partially your own doctor? What is health span? You'll hear me talking about health span, and you'll hear this word come up. In the future, you'll hear it come up more and more and more. It wasn't that many years ago that we were talking about extending the lives of humans, getting people so they could live longer. Well, about a decade ago, they started really focusing on how do we get it so that people can live longer, healthier. And that's what the health span is. And I'll go over that. How many years does a typical person, actually live in poor health? You'd be surprised. I mean, think about, your uncle in the nursing home. How many years has he been there? 10, 15? How many years have your own parents or grandparents had heart disease or been suffering from some kind of chronic ailment? And when researchers start looking into health span, which diseases are the ones being researched the most? Is it something where they're looking into just the weird and obscure diseases? or are they looking for something that affects a majority of people? And it really is the latter. They're looking for the things that seem to affect a lot of people. They're looking for things that can make a big difference. And people tell me all the time, they say, hey, Doc, why can't I just eat right? Well, I mean, the answer to that is you could, but are you gonna? I was just reading today that researchers here in the United States, they say that 13% of people eat right and get the nutrition from their food. 13%. That means 87% of us don't. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that and some key words. What are the experts saying? Can we expand this health span? Genetically, the human body was designed to live about 125 years. So health span, like I said, is defined as the number of years where you're healthy. You don't have any ailments. You don't have any infirmities. Science and human evolution have done a great job of extending human longevity. If we go back not that many years ago, less than 150 years, you'll find that they thought if you lived to be 50, you were doing pretty good. That was less than 150 years ago. Now, the average person lives to be 79 years of age. And it's not uncommon to hear of people living over 100. And we're going to see that more and more and more. And the problem is that as we see more people living into old age, the golden years, we see more people having old age diseases. And this is a concern for the world, the nations of the world. They're concerned with the cost of taking care of old people, the elderly. And it could bankrupt the world, because that's about 20% of someone's life is spent in poor health. 2018, so it was 2 years ago, aging was actually classified as a disease in the ICD-12 edition, which is the ICD, it's the International Classification of Disease. So aging was actually given a diagnosis code. Good health doesn't just come to everybody. You need to protect it. It costs money. And that's something that I try and share with people. Be wise with your money. Be thrifty. Be cheap. Be a cheapskate. Learn how to do it right. So, as I talk about this whole concept of longer life and longer health span and increased longevity, I got to give some words here that I want you to at least hear. So when they come up again, you can say, I've heard that word before. And I want you to understand it, even if it's just a little bit. You don't have to become a scientist. You don't have to sit there and read a couple hours worth of science newsletters like I do every single day. Not at all. I'll try and sum up the important stuff for you, and I'll try and keep it so that it's easy to understand. And sometimes, yes, there will be big words, and I'll try and break them down so you understand them. So some of the things you'll hear about: mitotic cells. Examples would be liver cells, cells of the skin, the digestive system. These are cells that need to be replaced all the time, constantly being replaced. Those are mitotic cells. they divide and divide and divide. And then after a certain amount of time, you've got to get rid of them and replace them. And then there's the post-mitotic cells, cells like of your brain and your nervous system. I remember years ago, they used to tell us, hey, the cells of the brain, they never regenerate. If you cause trouble, they'll never regenerate, right? You remember that commercial where they threw an egg in a frying pan and the egg was frying and they said, here's your brain on drugs. And it was like, you could never regrow that. Well, they've decided that you can now. You still don't want to do those drugs, but you can regrow your neurogenesis and heart muscle. But it takes a special operation in your cell. It's a special biological process that takes place. So it's not easily done, not like the cells of your skin or your liver, things like that. And then there's the stem cells. And the stem cells, they repair, they replace, and they become the other cells when they have to be replaced. So mitotic cells, eventually, they reach a limit where they've divided too many times. That's called the Hayflick limit, and that's the point to where, if you saw it, the cell is breaking down so many times that these telomere units, they get so close to the DNA that there's not enough protection there anymore. And if the cell went through another division, what it would do, it was actually take a piece of the DNA and it would clip it off. And then the very next time that cell divided, it would pass on the wrong message, because that's what happens, is that when a cell divides and becomes two daughter cells, it takes the DNA and it copies it. Well, if you clip off part of the DNA and now you copy it, aren't you going to have the wrong message being passed on to the next cell? So the body protects it by basically putting it into senescence. And then the cell goes through apoptosis, it's taken out, and it's replaced by a new younger cell. Stem cells don't have a Hayflick limit. They can continue to live forever. They can live to eternity. But stem cells are affected by byproducts and cellular garbage produced by normal metabolism like Lipo Fusion and advanced glycated end products. And as this garbage, this cellular garbage, builds up in the body, it affects the stem cells and it makes it so they are less effective at what they're supposed to be doing. And we've seen numbers where they say that by the time you're 40, 60%, 60% of your stem cells have gone into senescence. By the time you're in your 70s, they say the average human has 95% of their stem cells have gone into senescence. That leaves 5%. 5%. On top of that, the total number of stem cells has actually gone down as well. So if you have less stem cells and you have a high number of them that have gone into this senescence. So we're going to talk about that. And there's a lot of things that can cause these stem cells to be damaged. And mutation is probably the one that I look at the most. And mutation happens because of radiation. It becomes mutated because of chemicals in our environment. And so it's really important when we're talking about anti-aging that we should talk about, removing the chemicals out of our life as well. Think about the different things that you do. You brush your teeth, you wash your hair, you put stuff on your skin, right? They're loaded with toxins. So if you're not doing a good job of removing this out of your life, why would you want to spend money buying expensive exotic products to make you live longer if you're not going to remove the things that cause the most damage? So the immune system is what takes care of getting rid of these senescent stem cells, because as these senescent stem cells build up, they have one function, and their function is to cause chaos. And damage other cells, damage the other healthy cells. But your immune system, as you get older, it also goes into senescence. And that clearance is impaired. So when that senescence takes place and the immune system detects the abnormalities in the stem cells, then what it does is it takes them out, gets them out of the body, puts them through a process called apoptosis. But when it doesn't happen, those stem cells just sit there. And they're troublemakers, folks. If you can just try and remember these words, troublemakers. SASP, S-A-S-P, it's an acronym. Senescent Associated Secretory Phenotype. That means that they cause inflammation and they emit chemicals that break down the cell walls of the neighboring cells, and they harm them, and they actually kill your neighboring cells. They can make a normal healthy cell turn into a cancer cell. They can cause autoimmune disorders. Some common diseases associated with senescence: atherosclerosis, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, COPD, glaucoma, endometriosis, strokes, aortic aneurysm, neurodegeneration, and even the graying of the hair. So, can anything be done? Well, we need to take a look at what are some ways that we can help the body, the cells, so that they can survive and they can thrive. Eating right, of course, eating right. Because even though you can't get all your nutrition from your food, you still want to eat right. You still want to try and avoid those foods that are damaging and dangerous for you. You want to eat foods that are as loaded with good nutrition as you possibly can. You want to avoid the processed foods. I just did a talk with my friend Andrea the other day, and we were talking about how ultra processed foods, the body doesn't even recognize any part of it as food. It looks like an array of chemistry lined up, and yeah, it's not good. And you look at these man-made sugars, they're saying that they can cause obesity just like the natural sugars. So you want to avoid that as well. Learn how to eat right. Become aware. When you go to the grocery store, be thinking all the time, is this healthy for me? Is this good for me? I've gotten in the habit of turning the label over on the food, and I look at the label, and one of the first things I look at is I look at the sugar content. How much sugar am I going to get? And I'll put it back, even though it might be something that I want to eat, I don't get it. Exercise. We should be getting 30 to 40 minutes of exercise every single day. And you don't just want to be doing cardiovascular. You want to be lifting some weights. They've shown with studies, the National Institutes of Aging actually showed that if you're not tearing up your muscle, if you're not tearing up your muscle and rebuilding, taking it down, building it back up, the National Institutes of Aging actually did a study, millions of dollars worth of research, and they found that it triggers your brain to think that somehow you're dying. Somehow you're dying, and you start going through this neurodegeneration. And when you think of all the stem cells that are found in the brain, wouldn't it be important to learn how to exercise right as well? Sleep. That's when your body rejuvenates. That's when the parasympathetic nervous system kicks in, and it triggers your immune system to go back and rebuild, fix things. And then stop the bad habits like the smoking. There's nothing good that could come from smoking. Nothing good. And I used to be a smoker. I used to smoke 3 packs a day at one point in my life, a long time ago, before my kids were ever born. I know it's a hard habit to quit. And I meet people all the time that said, oh yeah, I quit once. as I see them lighting up a cigarette. And I go, well, you didn't actually quit then. You just slowed down for a period of time because, if you quit, you don't start up again, and not in my opinion. But, and drugs, holy cow. I mean, they're just, again, not good. Moderation of alcohol, moderation, brain health, keep your brain functioning. Do things every day. Try and learn new things every day. I try and learn new things every single day. I try and put puzzles in front of myself. What can I do? What can I solve today? Because it keeps me working. I watch my dad. He's 82 years old. I watch my mom, 80 years old. And that's some of the things that they do. When I watch my 95, 96, 97-year-old friends function in life, and I watch them. They're always giving themselves tasks to do, mental tasks, so that they stay healthy. Cardiovascular health, exercise, again, eat right, keep your heart in shape. Immune system, do what you can to keep right now, it's so important to keep the immune system going. And I made a post on Facebook today. Chiropractic care is so important for the immune system. When I had my practice going, I used to talk about that all the time. All the time. When you adjust somebody, when I give somebody a spinal adjustment, it stimulates and it supports the sympathetic nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system. And that helps with keeping the immune system working healthy so that you're healthy. And then, of course, dietary supplements that are designed and formulated for extending the health span. And you'll hear me talking about this tonight. The next few slides, that's what I'm going to be talking about. Think of it like a designer, like wearing designer clothes, but we're using designer healthcare products. So we want to support the healthy sirtuin genes. That's your body's DNA repair team. I'll talk about that. We want to support healthy telomeres. That's kind of the measuring stick for longevity. We want to support the healthy stem cell activity. We want to support the body's own defense system that stops old age. That's called senolytics. We want to provide pure, raw energy so the body can carry out these important functions, and that's with hydrogen. So the first product that I want to talk about is called Eternity. And Eternity is a product that Sisel came out with a number of years ago. It extends life kind of in a roundabout way, I guess I'm going to say, because it has something called resveratrol. And resveratrol got a lot of public review and notoriety back in the late 90s, early 2000, about 20 years ago, because they found that when you had resveratrol, which comes from the skin of and roots of red grapes, they found that what it does is it activated the sirtuin genes. And the SIRT1 gene, its job is to seek out damaged DNA. Damaged DNA. DNA that's been damaged by radiation from the sun. DNA that's been damaged from chemicals. Maybe, those skincare products that you use. Maybe from that toothpaste. Maybe from the laundry detergent. But wherever it comes from. Glyphosate. Those types of things. And even stress can damage the DNA. And the DNA of the mitochondria is the most highly susceptible to damage from stress. And the mitochondria, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, the mitochondria, that's the nuclear power plant. That's the part of the cell that builds energy. So you can see why it's just so important to keep this DNA repaired. And that's what resveratrol does. But resveratrol in plants, it protects the plants in a lot of the same way. It protects the plants from harsh environment, but they found that it can do it for men as well. They found that when you rev up the mitochondria, it helps keep the rest of the cell healthy. Think of it like an energy field, right? Like an energy field around your cell. Here's your cell, build an energy field around it. That's what the mitochondria can do. And resveratrol helps with that. So what makes our resveratrol totally different than anything else that's on the market? Look, as a doctor, as a physician, this is my 33rd year as a physician. I'll just tell you this. Most resveratrol that's on the market, you might as well take it and toss it out your window as soon as you leave the store. It's not worth the bottle that it's in, because resveratrol is highly oxidized. If it's not made right, so that it can withstand being exposed to oxygen. And this is important because some science shows that you can actually make it so it does have that capability. But we make one that's a liquid. Eternity is a liquid resveratrol. And just the results that we've seen, the testimonials that we've seen from it are just amazing. And they say that our product, based on the science of it, 250 times more available resveratrol than any kind of another product. You'd have to drink 720 glasses of red wine to get the equivalent of one serving of Eternity. There's 65,000 micrograms of resveratrol in one serving. There's 90 in a glass of red wine. So we'll hear about this more and more and more as we go through this anti-aging process, as we hear more about it. TSX, telomere support extreme. What are the telomeres? A lot of people, they don't really understand the telomere. And so if we could take a look at your DNA on that double helix where the chromosome is wrapped around together, on the ends of it, there's this kind of this rat's nest of particles, and it's just kind of circled, it's entwined upon itself. And that's the part of the cell that the body uses for copying, for making the DNA for the daughter cells. That's how one cell becomes two. And so this telomere unit at the end of the DNA, at the end of the chromosome, each time you have a division of cells, what happens is a little bit of it gets taken off, a little bit gets taken off, a little bit gets taken off. And eventually, if you keep clipping a little bit off, eventually you're going to get to the point to where it gets so close to the actual chromosome, to the actual DNA, that if you had another cell division, it would take some of the DNA and it would pull it off. And that would damage this DNA. So the next cell division, now you would be sending on the wrong message, the wrong chromosome message to the next cell. So the body, like I was saying earlier, the body has a way of protecting against that. And it puts the cells into this senescent state. And what it does, it takes them out. It doesn't allow them to replicate anymore. So scientists started thinking, well, what if we can take and we can extend this telomere? If we can extend this telomere, make it so that we take off this much, we put this much on. We take off this much, we put this much on. We take off this much, we put this much on. You see what I'm saying? Just keep rebuilding what you take off. And what they found was that there was two really powerful plant extracts. Actually, there's more than two. There's four, but they come from two plants. One of them comes from astragalus, and it's called cycloastragalonol. And they found that that ingredient is kind of the I'm going to say the gold standard. That's what everything is. You measure it based on that. Cycloastragalose. There's so very little in astragalus that in order to create just a couple kilos of it, you have to have 12,000 pounds of dried astragalus to get just 2 kilos, which is about 5 pounds. And it's an $84,000 per kilo extract. $84,000. So just imagine that. That's pretty darn expensive if you ask me. And we put that in our product. So people say to me all the time, they say, why is that product so expensive? Well, because just one extract is $84,000. We have another extract that also comes from the astragalus plant. And then we have 2 ingredients that come from bacopa. 2 ingredients that come from bacopa, and or bacopa, I guess some people call it. And those extracts aren't cheap either. But they found that these 2 things, these 2 plant extracts, are very powerful for adding back on to that telomere. And if you can keep that telomere longer, and you can keep that cell dividing in a healthy way, the cell doesn't have to go into senescence as quickly. The immune system isn't going to put that stem cell into senescence. Does that make sense? Okay. You see in the tie here, you're seeing everything being tied together. That's what I love about this, is that it all starts to make sense. So as you burn sugar and carbohydrates, right? All carbohydrates turn into sugar eventually. And when your body burns carbohydrates as energy, it creates kind of a sugar coating. Think of it like if you got your frying pan and you threw in a piece of hard candy into there, and what does it do? It melts and it creates this hard gunk on your frying pan, and you let that dry on the frying pan, and it's hard to get off of that. Well, in your body is like a low heat oven. It's burning at a high temperature, or not a real high temperature, but a temperature that's warm enough to cook things. And so you're constantly cooking this sugar, and the sugar is wrapping on and it's coating all your cells. And over a period of time, that makes it so that your cell can't function properly. Your stem cells can't function properly. As you burn fat as energy, it creates a byproduct. It's called Lipo Fusion. Think of that like the gunk, like if you cook bacon, again in a frying pan, you know? I'm trying to make it so you can have a visual of what's going on. When you have that gunk in the bottom of the frying pan that's left over after you cook some bacon, that bacon grease, in your body, we would call that Lipo Fusion. It's a form of metabolic waste. It's a cellular sludge that builds up, and over time, that creates this clutter. It creates this problem. So the stem cells can't function as well as they should. And you want to have your stem cells so they operate at peak efficiency all the time. When Tom came up with the formulation a number of years ago, there was science that had just come out, and it was talking about all the importance of taking and using different forms of vitamin B3 that could help the body. And Tom went, he did all this research, and he put together a product, a powerful product that doesn't just use one ingredient, but it actually has 5 different ways that it can help the stem cell function better. So it removes this glycation, it removes the lipofuscin, it removes the toxins from biological activity. And it's also designed to help boost that biological hydrogen. Remember, I talked about that you need pure raw energy for biological processes to take place. And when this product came out about 4 years ago, we started seeing testimonials right away. I noticed for myself when I went on this product, my vision got better. I was wearing reading glasses. I was wearing those cheaters. Now I can sit here and I can go on my cell phone. I mean, you'll see me I'll be right here on my computer. I'll be sitting in front of my computer, but yet I'll be reading my internet, my emails on my cell phone. I don't even know where my reading glasses are. I think they got thrown away. I think they got stepped on and got tossed out. I don't even need to wear my reading glasses anymore. That was my first noticeable change. Then I started noticing that my memory started to come back. I started having the memory that I had when I was in college, when I was going to school for chiropractic and engineering. I started feeling like I was sharp as a tack again. I like that. I like that. And we hear all sorts of testimonials all the time on this product. Because of Tom's work with stem cells and the age pill, he was invited to be a keynote speaker at the World Congress of Stem Cells. This was 2 years ago. And at that conference, he was talking to one of the iconic figures in the age reversal field, Aubrey de Grey, and they were discussing one of the, I guess, the upcoming problems with age reversal and anti-aging, which was getting rid of the senescence cells. And so you've heard me mention that word, and you'll hear this more and more and more as we go through this, but senescence cells are those cells that they get to a certain point, the telomeres are too short, or maybe there's been a DNA mutation and the immune system picks up on it. And the immune system says, hey, this isn't supposed to be here. This is wrong. And it puts those cells to sleep. It puts them dormant. But senescent cells, that's kind of the wrong way of thinking about it when we're taught that, or when we think that senescent cells are cells that went to sleep. They really didn't go to sleep. They really didn't become dormant. They're like that kid that sat next to you in school that was always pinching you, always tapping you on the shoulder, always trying to cause chaos. That's what they do. And these senescent cells, like I said earlier, they can cause a lot of common diseases. A lot of the diseases that, when you start looking at the top 10 causes of death in the Western world, you'll start seeing those same diseases. Google that. Do a Google search. The top 10 causes of death in the Western world, in the United States. Do a Google search on the diseases caused by senescence. And I also challenge you to do this. Do a Google search on the pre-existing conditions that make the CV-19 virus so bad. And they're all the same. And I try and point this out to people, that they're all the same. Those diseases are the same. Atherosclerosis, heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, neurodegeneration like dementia and Alzheimer's, kidney disease, right? Glaucoma. These are endometriosis, cancer, immune system problems. These are all diseases caused by senescence. And we can't say that we could cure or treat or anything like that. I mean, if you have any of those diseases, like I said earlier, contact your doctor. Don't trust me. Question me as much as I say to question them. That's what I want you to do. That's what you should be doing. Get your own answers. Form your own opinion. But senescent cells, when they accumulate, they cause problems. Accelerated aging. And you want to do your best to get rid of them. So Tom took, and he didn't just take one ingredient, fisetin. He didn't just take fisetin, which is an extract from strawberries, and put it in there. He put 8 different broad spectrum, powerful, natural senolytic agents that help to remove and cause these senescent cells to go into apoptosis, which is cellular suicide. Get them out of the body. Get rid of them. Get them out of there. You're out of here, right? Get those cells out so you can go on with healthy aging. That's what Stemlytic does. So you can see again, all of these things are working together. You see, when I'm talking about Senolytic, I have to mention telomeres. When you see me talking about Senolytics, you hear me, I have to talk about DNA damage. When you hear me talking about Senolytic, you hear me talking about mitochondria. You see how all these things are wrapped together. There's not just one great product. It all fits together. And if you're not taking care of your health, if you're not removing those damaging chemicals that you're doing every single day, why would you spend the money here? Why would you spend the money on it? Right? So, as I talk about these types of things, I like to get that out there with people. And so the body takes all of these damaged cells then, and that's what your lymphatic system is all about. Your lymphatic system gets rid of the bigger garbage, right? Your veins get rid of the cellular garbage, and then your lymphatic system pumps out the bigger garbage, and it dumps it out through through different methods, through your sweat, saliva, urine, feces. I mean, you're going to get rid of all these old dead cells different ways, and that's how it works. But this all takes energy. It all takes energy. You have to have a way of making sure that you have enough energy. The mitochondria needs fuel. And H2 sticks is the fuel for the body. It's pure energy. Hydrogen is pure energy. And wasn't that many years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, Tom came out with the H2 machines that we had, the water machines that we had, would convert regular water from your tap into hydrogen. You could drink it, and it would be enough suspended hydrogen in it to make a difference. But the problem with it was there just wasn't enough. There wasn't enough concentrated hydrogen to make that difference. I mean, once you get to know Tom doesn't just put a little bit, he doesn't just sprinkle a little bit into his product. He wants the whole thing in there. He wants that whole ball of wax. He wants these products to be the very best. So he figured out how to put together a package that you could dump into your water, stir it up, drink it within 15 minutes, and you're getting the maximum amount of hydrogen of any product on the market. It tastes good, and it gives you energy. It gives you the fuel you need. If you're trying to do anti-aging, I'm going to tell you what Tom told me. I asked Tom, I said, if we're doing all these different things, if we're doing the Senolytics, if we're doing, the age pill, if we're doing the TSX, if we're using the resveratrol with Eternity, how much hydrogen do we actually need? And Tom told me I should be taking 2 of these a day. I'm going to tell you the same thing. If you're doing all those other things, 2 a day. I mean, let's go back and look at the TSX. I'm doing 3 TSX a day. 3. There's 30 in a bottle. So that means I go through 3 bottles a month. So sometimes you have to do a little bit more than what you would think. Like I said earlier, I've always been on purpose. I've been on track. My goal is to help people live for a long, healthy time. And, I think that way back when, not that many years ago, way back when, if I was writing a book, it'd start out a long, long time ago in a faraway galaxy. No, that's Star Wars. But we used to look at our grandparents and our parents, and you could see a resemblance. You look like them, so therefore on the outside, if you look like them, then on the inside, you got to look like them as well. And you go, well, grandpa had this, grandma had this, that's the diseases that I got to worry about. And we do our best to try and follow some kind of a regimen to lower our risk of having those diseases. We'd eat for what we thought was the best for that. At least that's how I looked at it. You may have not done that, but I did. I started thinking about this a long time ago. I started thinking about this 30 some years ago. My goal has always been to live to be over 100 years of age. Then in 1999, the Human Genome Project was complete. And that's where they mapped out all of the little pieces of the human DNA. And they found that certain parts of the DNA were responsible for different things. They found that certain parts of the DNA were responsible for heart disease and cancer and all these different things. And so you could order a test and you could find out where the mistakes were in your DNA, and they're called SNPs, SNP, single nucleotide polymorphisms. And don't think of them as being a diagnosis or something that says you're going to have it. Think of them more like a light switch. And what I try and tell people is that if I never flick the light switch on in a room, the light's not going to come on. I don't care how many times I change the light bulb, that light isn't going to come on. And that's the same thing with SNPs in your DNA. If you've got a certain SNP that says that you're high risk for Alzheimer's, if you never flip that light switch on, you're not going to have the disease. And so wouldn't you like to know what sorts of things can flip that light switch on? So those are great tests to have. Here in the United States, we got another number of companies that run the test. I actually use a company out of Australia, Smart DNA. I like using them. They have a reasonable price, and they give you a book, like a owner's manual, right? That you can read through and you go, okay, so I have that one, and they tell you not just what mistakes you have, but they tell you what you can do about it, what things cause that light switch to go on and off. So you want to do the things that make it go off. Sometimes you want to make it so it goes on. And so I like that. And then there's other tests now that you can order that you can find your inside age, you can find your biological age, your true biological age. And they found that when they're studying these different kinds of anti-aging, they found that when they're working with mice, we've done a lot of studies with mice, and they found that if they work with mice and they work with cardiovascular cells, they can reduce the number, the reduction in the age-related heart disease. They found that, I'm reading off some notes that I made earlier. They found that when they're working with kidney cells, that if they can reduce the number of abnormal cells in the kidney, they can reduce the amount of kidney dysfunction. They found that if they reduce the number of bad or senescence foam cells, they can reduce the amount of atherosclerosis, the damage to the arteries. And overall, they found that there's a reduction in host toxicity when they remove these abnormal cells. When you have a reduction in the toxicity of the cell, it increases the rate of recovery when you do get sick. It increases the rate of recovery when you do get sick. And they find that it decreases your risk of disease. So, in ending, I'm just going to say this. Look, after hearing what I had to say, you're thinking, I need to look into these products more. I'd like to be on some of the things. I'd like to find out more about some of the things that the doc was talking about. Do that. You might be thinking, I know somebody else that needs to know about this. Well, for gosh sakes, share this information with them. Share this information with them. There's a third classification of people that say, this sounds like an awful lot of fun too. I mean, a business What if you can make enough money that you can get all those products for free? What if you can make enough money that they actually pay you to take the products? Like Dennis said on a call earlier tonight. Dennis said, we all do network marketing. Just most of us don't get paid for it. We're always sharing information. Hey, did you see that movie? Hey, did you go to the restaurant? Hey, did you try this? I'm just going to say, why not get paid for it? You can, with what we're doing here. You can get paid for it. Join as a distributor, join as a brand partner, and start sharing this information. I mean, we all know people who want to live healthier, every single one of us. Maybe it's not you, maybe it's your sister. Share the information, get paid for it. Nothing wrong with that. I think the highest paid people on the planet should be the people that help other people. So if you see yourself just wanting more out of life, if you see yourself as someone who's just going, you know, I just don't feel like I'm doing enough, join us. We're always looking for good members of the team. If you're bored with what you're doing, join us. We'll help you. You're not going to be on it on your own. We're not going to quarantine you. Right? I don't think a lot of people heard that term as much as they've heard until the last couple of months. So anyhow, folks, thanks for being with me today. Have a great day. And I look forward to working with each and every one of you. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.